Hello, hello! Name's Alan. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today we'll be playing another special build on Wizard of Legend. By special build, of course, I mean that we're going to be starting things off with two starter relics, the second of which will be a cursed relic, a run modifier, if you will, from outside of the game. These usually change up your gameplay, and today's run modifier will drastically change up the core gameplay of a Wizard of Legend Chaos Trial run. Now, you can purchase up to one of these run modifiers in the lobby before actually entering your run. Lobby, i.e. where you would assemble your builds, where you talk to NPCs, unlock items, etc., where you actually end up declaring your run, ultimately. That also means if you were to randomize a build, you would only know in hindsight whether your run modifier choice was foolish or not, as they are cursed relics, they cannot be discarded nor rerolled, whereas a randomized build, you only get to see the second your run actually begins, i.e. the second you find yourself actually in a run. With all those things having been said, I'd say let's get right into today's video. Today's build is called Sano, Destroyer of Eardrums. Kind of a stupid title, but I do like the puns here a lot. So, this is a double reference, or a triple reference. Well, first of all, Sano. What is that name referring to? Sano refers to our first regular starter relic, whereas Destroyer of Eardrums, the title of Sano, if you will, refers twice to our second starter relic, i.e. our run modifier. As we're going to be starting things off with a music instrument. There are a bunch of instrument-themed items in this game. For whatever reason, they do not stack up and become some kind of choir stacking item or anything similar to that. But nonetheless, regardless, I still like them a lot, and there is in fact a run modifier that's also a music instrument. And it has a certain effect, which is, let's say, quite explosive. So, Destroyer of Eardrums, as in explosions destroying your eardrums, destroying your hearing permanently, seemed like a very fitting title. I really love this title. It's a little cringe. It kind of sounds like very anime or like superhero Marvel movie-like, but still, regardless, I think it sounds nice. I do like it. Today, we will not present our build in traditional order, as we really need context here. We need to see our run modifier right away before actually diving into the build head first. So I'd say, let's get things going, shall we? This might take a while. As per usual, I did not prepare anything. Maybe we'll get lucky. I highly doubt it. It's always very unlikely to get lucky in here. Let's just enjoy the music for now. Switching back and forth. I remember the first time ever listening to this soundtrack, the lobby soundtrack. It was awesome. I love the music in this game so much that I legitimately bought a soundtrack. I bought the jazzy soundtrack, the I believe the jazzy main theme / title screen soundtrack. There's plenty, of course. There's one for every area and every kind of situation in the game. Obviously, so there's a lot of very good songs, but my absolute favorite has gotta be just the regular all-day lobby song. It makes you so excited and kind of concerned as well about what's to come. Like, you enter here, you see all the merchants, it feels super retro, super fucking cool. Little merchants selling you the items that you can unlock. It's so unique and cool, like, man, I really love that a lot. Take the Binding of Isaac, for example, right? As a kind of counter image here, or a counter ID. In the Binding of Isaac, you just unlock items by doing certain things. In a lot of other roguelikes, you unlock items by completing certain challenges, for example, like in Risk of Rain, right? You unlock everything in that game by completing challenges. Okay, we're done with the small talk, we can move on. Conga drum set, we found it! Wow, that's a very long description. Spawns explosive barrels randomly throughout the trials. Wizards become immune to exploding barrels, but recover slower from attacks. So this essentially has the downside of a magician's wand, which is a massive downside. Or, essentially, more precisely, it's not exactly the Magician's Wand downside. Magician's Wand just slows down your activation speed of Arcana, which is kind of the same thing, let's be honest. But Conga drum set exactly has the same downside as the Cursed Bracelet, the Cursed Glove that allows you to parry, which is huge, so you can't ever be hit, realistically, because say you're hit by a regular knight, he can literally stun-lock you into oblivion, which is crazy. Just imagine every single enemy becoming a rogue, capable of killing you in a 1v1 situation because you're stun-locked to the point where you can't do anything about it. You're just standing still and you're left to die. That is incredibly powerful, of a downside, that is. If you've ever played this game, you absolutely will know that rogues are positively the most threatening enemy in this game, regardless of all bosses, not even taking into account the fact that they can spawn as elementals or that they scale. Rogues on a base level are just incredibly dangerous. They literally stun-lock you until you're dead, which is a thing that other games don't allow for, as they usually grant you iframes after being hit. In this game, not so much. There are no iframes after being hit, which I like a lot. It makes the game quite challenging. It allows you to die quickly off of chains of hits that should have been avoided on your part. So that's Conga drum set. There's got to be a bunch of explosive barrels that cannot harm us. They can still harm enemies. These will be scattered around the trials, which is neat, so we can try to use them for our advantage. But as the downside here, we can't ever let enemies hit us. Otherwise, we might just be dead immediately after. So, all that out of the way, I'd say let's get into the build. Let's continue the build in traditional order, rather, starting things off, of course, with our rope, which will be the Grit Rope, which increases our armor by 10%, which is very nice, and our healing received by 10% respectively. This is the best survivability rope in my book. Armor increase means that whenever we do get hit and we end up being stun-locked, we won't receive nearly as much damage. Increased healing received also means that the damage that we were dealt previously, we can simply out-heal a lot better, more consistently, which I do like a lot. You do end up finding a ton of healing also over the course of your run, whether it be by chest drops, by destroying obstacles, by finding Dr. Song, by simply heading to a boss stage, yada yada yada. There's just a lot of free healing, in addition to what is already there, like healing potions, relics that do healing for you, etc. So naturally, Grit Robe is very powerful, and increased healing received is super useful regardless of your build. It's very good. Same for armor, honestly. If you expect to be taking damage at any given point during your run, extra armor is fantastic. And it stacks up very nicely with other armor-related things, like relics that grant you a huge boost to your armor, like 20%, 10%, 15%. There are just so many great items. Grit Rope also has a decent upgrade, 5% additionally on both of these is equally as good as the base version, honestly. It's very, very good. I really like Grit a lot. And not to mention, it looks fantastic. I love the coloring on this. It's just very clean, very default looking, like not super exciting, but it's super clean. I do like it a lot, and that perfectly encapsulates this robe, whether it be the name, the color, or the stats. It's simply a clean, decent, never bad to use robe. Let's move on to our first starter relic, which will be a defensive item if I'm not mistaken. Should be right up here. Indeed, Sano's Headband. That is where our title, our name comes from. Sano's Headband, what's it do? You can no longer be interrupted while activating Arcana. So, while in the middle of using an ability, regardless of how long that may take to complete, you cannot be interrupted. That means if you were to take damage during it, you would simply take the damage, and that's it. There's no stun lock happening. You simply complete your ability while taking damage. This can get out of hand quite quickly if you're used to being cancelled by taking damage. Say you're using a Tectonic Drill setup, for example. That's a very long-lasting ability that you have to actively use, that you can't really do anything while using it. Say, especially during the signature, it has a very, very long signature animation. You would just be taking damage and remain in place, not being knocked back, not being cancelled, or anything like that. If you're used to being cancelled when taking damage, you would kind of react to the sound cue and dodge the upcoming attacks in time. Because bosses never just hit you once, right? They hit you in waves of attacks. 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 and so on and so forth. So you have to be on your toes at any given time, and the Sanos kind of gets rid of that. Like, you can still technically hear the sound cue, you can watch a health bar and pay close attention, but occasionally you will just forget about it. You will miss that you're taking a ton of damage right now, because you just happen to walk right through an attack and you totally forgot about everything, and you just keep standing there instead of dodging. Say sometimes you are just so focused on the flow of battle, the flow of combat, that you just really try to maximize your damage output and don't pay attention to anything else. If you're doing that willingly, Sanos can be incredibly powerful, but if you already got items like Double Trouble and Double Toll that make you take a lot of extra damage, Sanos is incredibly risky to use, and you should always pay very close attention to your health pool, to animations potentially hitting you or getting super close, to enemies hidden in the dark, like behind a pillar, for example, like rogues, for example, or being invisible, dashing around, teleporting around. You have to pay a lot more attention in order to not die, as you will eventually forget about this item, or just neglect it, be like, yeah, there's no downside to not noticing when I'm taking damage. I can just be as aggressive as I want to. That's at least my experience with it. Other than that, it's a fantastic item. It enables certain strategies like a tectonic drill to the Sura face, for example, which is very, very lovely. I do love it a lot. You can play incredibly aggressively, as you simply have to use a bunch of Arcana with a long duration, like a Fueled Berserk, for example, and boom, there you go. You are essentially invulnerable. Like, not being able to be CC'd, I do consider incredibly powerful, as usually it doesn't matter how much damage you take in a boss fight. You can take like 400 damage and still be fine afterwards, just healing yourself back up very quickly with a healing part or with a bunch of health orbs. As long as you play appropriately enough, cleanly enough, I think this item is incredibly powerful, and we really like it a lot. Now this, we are going to be using in kind of in conjunction with the Conga drum set. We will try to sort of negate the downside of Conga drum set by never actually allowing us to be cancelled. So Conga's drum set says you recover slower from attacks. This implies that you have to be hit from an attack and then stun locked by that attack. Any attack that hits you will interrupt you and force you to recover. Whereas while I'm using the Sanos, I will not be interrupted, so I won't have to recover. So I want abilities that last very long, that I can cast frequently, so I can mitigate the downside of Conga's drum set and simply abuse the Donkey Kong powers of having barrels everywhere. Explosive barrels, being able to abuse them to my advantage, which I do like a lot. I think that's very creative. This is a theory build. I have not really played this. Like, I tried it out a handful of times, but that was ages ago and I can't even remember it. So, pardon me if this doesn't end up actually working out very efficiently, but I will try and give it a go here, ultimately. Let's get into the abilities here. This is not exactly a super spicy build. We already established what we need besides survivability. We want abilities that last long and that are decently useful, that allow for us to deal a decent amount of damage. As Conga Drum said, just spawns explosive barrels. It doesn't grant us extra base damage, for example. So we ultimately still have to win a regular run. However, we only have 10 remaining item spots. So our items or abilities need to be very powerful to compensate for that. For our basic, I decided to run Stone Shot, one of my favorite basic Arcana in this game. Now, arguably you can run a lot of different abilities here. I just really like Stone Shot. I think this kind of thematically fits. So it's a projectile-based Arcana. You rapidly fire out small pebbles. The first 2 stones of any given attack are, well, small rocks dealing a decent amount of damage, and then the final blast will be a larger rock, sort of an explosion, which deals a great amount of damage, like so. This is a held Arcana, so it's very, very helpful. Look at that damage, so that is very, very good. 12, 12, 15, that is crazy good. Huh. Maybe things are a little buggy right now due to the Conga drum set. I'm not sure why I'm dealing so much damage. It seems a little crazy for a basic Arcana to be dealing that much damage right now. And if I'm not mistaken, it only deals like 7, 7, 12 or something. But regardless, very, very good ability either way. It can hit multiple people as long as they are very close to one another. Like so, they have to be on the perfect same height, at least roughly, but not too roughly, as you could tell right there. Wait, let me demonstrate it like so. You can actually hit multiple enemies. Right here, you have to bring them roughly around the same height in order to be able to do that. But if you can do that consistently, this ability is super cool. It has a decent range. It can be tapped decently efficiently as it deals great damage even when tapped. You can redirect it, as with most abilities, so it's super, super versatile, super fun, great signal to charge generation, as you can tell as well, and then the enhancement deals twice the damage as you toss wonderful pebbles every time you use it, which is nice. On every single throw, you toss 2 stones instead, which is cool. That's essentially like a combo glove. And combined with your gloves, with your candies, like an evening glove, like the wind candy, for example, a fueled berserk arcana, a lightning aspect arcana. This can get out of hand incredibly quickly, and I really love it. Just imagine having a combo glove, like you're already hitting everything twice, 6 rocks per cast, and then with evening gloves you hit even faster, and then with combo gloves you get an additional, what is it, additional 2 rocks, like an additional final throw. That thing is so cool. It goes insane with itself so quickly, and I really love it a lot. You can also slap a reinforced braces on it and then make it destroy projectiles efficiently. Like, it's so freaking cool. I love it so much. We're going to be using it mainly as a ranged poking tool, and then when we actually need to, we will use it as a main damage tool to crowd control a bunch of enemies, for example, to burst them down, to slowly whittle down boss HP, and then also, since it's a projectile with a decent range, I can use it like so to simply proc barrels that are far away from me and then adjacent to enemies, as to abuse their power, but not have to get super close, risking being hit in the process. Instead, I can just safely defuse the barrel or make it proc, make it go off from afar, which is nice. I do like that a lot. For our dash, we will be running the Bubble Blast, also a projectile-based ability. However, this one is not so much damage ability as it is actually just a utility ability for us. Generally speaking, this is an ability that is solely used for a tiny bit of extra crowd control, for a tiny bit of extra maneuverability with the option to escape from a given situation, and it's used by me predominantly for projectile destruction purposes. However, today is a little different. We will still be using it for projectile destruction. However, the main focus here lies on a different aspect of utility, which is, this is essentially a random shotgun spread anywhere on your screen. So you dash forth and you leave a bunch of bubbles in random locations, slightly moving around the place behind. These bubbles pop on contact with a projectile or with an enemy, dealing a tiny amount of damage and a tiny amount of knockback to given enemies, like so. Now, you can tell the spread on this thing is rather huge and very unpredictable. It's different every single time, if I'm not mistaken here. Let me check it out again. Maybe not so much. It does seem random, but it's really hard to tell. Yeah, that seemed very different. You can use this for damage theoretically by dashing directly through enemies, like so. But even then, it doesn't deal a great amount of damage, so I highly recommend you use it for its utility, which is just blocking off corridors like this one here, whether it be for projectiles or enemies alike trying to get through towards you. So you can simply just do this and walk away. You should be good to go. It doesn't generate, naturally, a huge amount of value, but for us, we simply want bubbles to go everywhere in order to simply proc explosive barrels all over the place. I do like that a lot. I want an unpredictable dash here that will simply cause more chaos, whether it be by pushing enemies around, by splitting them up, or by exploding barrels all over the screen. I do like that a lot. That's also a decent reason for picking up its enhancement, which simply increases the size of all of these beautiful bubbles. Massively massively increasing their projectile destruction capabilities. But also, generally, this path always leaves behind some sort of hole anywhere in here, so sometimes enemies will simply walk right past the bubbles and right all the way through here, in a zigzag usually, or something similar, like something that you wouldn't be able to predict whatsoever, and the larger bubbles just help mitigate that to stop enemies. Ultimately, nothing can really get through once the ability is enhanced, but we're just going to be using it for the aforementioned reason. You can arguably use something else here as well. I just really like this. Probably another recommendation would be Frostwing, which is a lot better of an ability, can actually be used for damage, can be used very effectively for crowd control, even for projectile destruction. It technically even does a better job at that as than the Bubble Blast here, because Bubble Blast is just unpredictable, while Frostwing always works in exactly the same way. And Frostwing is, generally speaking, just so freaking good. But it doesn't sort of randomly cover the area around you. It's always exactly the same way, so it is a lot more predictable. Therefore, I personally much prefer Bubble Blast. Other than those, I don't think there are any noteworthy options here. Potentially Magma Rush, but it's not exactly unpredictable either. Potentially Chaotic Echoes or Wavefront. But to me, personally, there's only one option here in terms of random shenanigans, and that's gotta be Bubble Blast. Let's move on to our standard though. This is a bit of a spicy pick because it's kind of a stupid pick, I'm gonna be honest. I don't even fully support it myself. I just kinda like the idea. It's gotta be Tearing Whirlwind. Yes, not as a signature, as a standard unenhanced ability. This ability is absolutely horseshit when unenhanced. It's absolutely dog water when not used as your signature, or at least the very bottom line, it has to be enhanced in order for you to use this to any sort of meaningful degree. It's just so terrible. Oh, sorry, you did not see that. So, Tearing Whirlwind, what's it do? It's a melee movement standard Arcana. You essentially turn into a moving tornado. You can move around while using this. It will pull enemies towards your character, and then you can carry them around for the duration of this ability. It has a rather medium to long duration, I'd say. It allows you to simply pick up enemies like so, walk up to a pit, and then they will fall into that pit. You have to walk all the way to the edge, because they have to kind of rotate around you to the side where the edge is, right? And then enemies, unlike player characters, won't stop in front of pits. They will simply be dropped into them, as if you had just beaten them into it, or used a wavefront to push them inside. So that's the only really applicable reason of this ability, in my opinion. There is nothing else you can realistically do with this, beside grouping enemies up. But with the unenhanced ability, you move at your base movement speed, which can be horrible. Say you find an item like the anchor, like the silver spinning top, or any other movement speed downs. My god, this ability is just unusable. It doesn't have the greatest range around your character, as you can tell. This is a melee ability after all, and it doesn't have the greatest duration at the beginning here, so it can be very hard climbing up an entire room. Look, I can barely make it for this room, and then it already stops again. It does have a rather short cooldown at roughly 7 seconds or so, minus its duration, I'd say. Considering what it actually does, what it can be used for, simply just dropping enemies off or climbing them up occasionally, I believe that's fair. You could probably make it like 4 or 5 seconds, and it would still be fair. So I guess compared to other abilities, it doesn't have a short cooldown, but individually speaking, just looking at the Arcana, it could be worse. Okay, for what it does, for what it's worth, for what you are going to be using it, it does have a decent cooldown. So, when enhanced, this ability becomes a lot faster, also spins more often, dealing more damage, but that part is entirely irrelevant, as it deals an absolutely horribly low amount of damage, regardless of what slot you end up using it for. Even as a signature, this ability is just absolutely terrible. But I do love it. It holds a dear place to my heart, personally, and I believe it can be super impactful for certain builds. Also, I just love dropping people off into pits and climbing them up. It's It's so cool. So you turn into a little whirlwind when enhancing this. This is an absolutely mandatory enhancement. Probably similar to the stone shirt, as you also really want that enhancement for extra damage. That's got to be your main damage tool after all. And then Bubble Blast is undeniably in the last spot here. If this is the first one you come across, of course, you can pick up the enhancement. But other than that, there should never ever be a reason where you would prefer Bubble Blast over any of the other abilities here. Tearing Whirlwind, very, very important to grant you extra movement speed in order for you to use that rather short duration to group up the entire room, not just a small part of it, because that can get out of hand very quickly. What we're also going to be using it for here is, of course, pulling in barrels. Because when you use this ability by default and pull in an explosive barrel, the barrel will go off immediately, hitting everything in its range, which is also another form of saying it's gonna hit you. It's gonna interrupt this ability. You're just gonna be left stun locked for a short period of time. We're gonna try to do that to our enemies by lifting up the barrels and enemies alike, and then essentially becoming an explosive, just whirling around tornado, man. It's really just that simple. You pick up a bunch of barrels, pick up a bunch of people, the barrels go off inside of the tornado. They can stun lock you due to your run modifier, but they will stun lock and potentially kill the enemies that you're whirling around. Of course, this ability does not work with larger enemies that are immune to being moved, like the black giants or the stone golems, for example, or bosses and mini bosses, as a matter of fact. You can nonetheless still try to move barrels towards a mini-boss, for example. If you can somehow manage to do that, I think that's very unlikely. But yeah, we will try and take a look at how useful this ability can actually be with this run modifier. I am quite curious. I'm sure there's hundreds of better abilities to use for this particular build idea, but it's just gotta be Tearing Whirlwind. Similarly to the Bubble Blast, to me there's only one option here. I have to try it. Finally, for our signature, you've already seen it previously. It's the Inferno Beam, which I do like a lot. Again, this is a very, very good ability. Incredibly powerful for projectile destruction purposes, as it covers pretty much the entirety of your screen. It is enhanced, as we're going to be using it as our signature. That means it will have a lot more range, it will be a lot wider, and deal a lot more base damage. We don't really care a ton about it. We will mainly use it as a even longer form of Stone Shot and Tearing Whirlwind to make a bunch of barrels go off. It casts a bunch of crisscrossing lasers starting in the middle of the direction wherever you're facing from your character, facing outwards. These lasers are essentially hit scan, or just a huge cleaving ability like so. These will burn your enemies, destroy all projectiles touched, pierce all enemies, and deal a hefty chunk of damage in the process. It's not the greatest ability damage-wise, but when used as a signature, which you can fill up easily by slapping a Bladed Buckler relic on here, as these destroy all projectiles coming your way. Guaranteed, in a 180-degree angle in front of your character, which is incredibly strong against a Zeal, for example. You, like, say she does the dragon attack, right? With the dragon arcs coming your way, the hundreds of small projectiles. You just cast one Inferno Beam, killing all of those, or eradicating all of those. You get an instantly fully charged signature. Even Sora can perform that attack, right? So you could do it against him theoretically as well. And then you can use the larger version, the big brother of Inferno Beam, which will also destroy all projectiles touched, by the way, but has a much larger range and casts this ability a ton more often, like so. Yes! Unlimited power! It's so good. I like it a lot. It's very, very fun. And we're going to be using it as a swift way of doing this. So we will burn a bunch of enemies, dealing a small amount of damage in the process, or we will use this as a long-range poking ability, or simply to hit a bunch of barrels in the room that we are currently in. However, I do have my preferred methods for that, those being, of course, the other three, or more specifically, the standard ability here for us today. I think Tearing Whirlwind is going to be a lot more impactful, as making barrels explode in and of itself isn't super useful, right? You want the barrels to go off near enemies, so you have to either make enemies walk towards the barrels, which is not super trivial or easy, and you need a bunch of knockback related items for that, or abilities, as a matter of fact. Or you could simply bring the barrels to your enemies, or bring both of them to the same point, and Tearing Whirlwind just does that for you. So usually That's my bet. It's gonna be of a better use than simply making barrels go off all over your room. Regardless, Inferno Beam will help us deal a little bit of extra damage. It will help us deal with bosses and projectiles a lot better, which I do like a lot, and that's what we're going to be using it for. There's probably many different versions of builds that you could run here that actually make sense. I just decided to run a bunch of my favorite abilities. All of these I absolutely love. I've used a ton over the years, and man, it's great. It's gotta be fantastic. I'd say let's get into the build specifics, swiftly moving on. I feel like I've been talking for way longer here than I should have, simply because I really like these abilities a lot. Let's start things off with the intended build playstyle. In my opinion, from what I'm guessing, as I haven't collected too much experience playing with this build, or this run modifier rather, you probably always want to focus your attention on barrels. You want your enemies to be baited towards barrels, to be close or adjacent even to barrels, and then you want to pop the barrels. Just abuse the hell out of the barrels, which not always kill enemies. In fact, during later stages they won't really harm them whatsoever, but they will leave them stun-locked, exposed to you for a few seconds, which you can then abuse with your Stone Shot, your basic Arcana, or your Inferno Beam, your signature Arcana. Very, very easy. Just burn them, deal a bunch of damage to them, push them around with a Tearing Whirlwind or a Stone Shot, or even an Inferno Beam, which isn't the greatest of abilities for knockback, but it still works regardless. So you just use a bunch of barrels, stun lock a huge group of enemies, and then if that group is clumped up, use Inferno Beam or Tearing Whirlwind, and if it's not, just use Stone Shot to finish them off individually. That having been said, I'd say you have a bunch of combinations that you can use for given situations, just like I mentioned. I feel like you always want to keep the Tearing Whirlwind at the back of your shed, so to speak, in order to use it as an escape tool. So let's say in that scenario right now, a bunch of enemies walk towards you, and like there's barrels across the stage, across the current room that you're locked in. You can just wait. You can just let the enemies walk towards you, proc the barrel while standing next to it. It's not going to harm you. It's not going to knock you back, at least from what I recall. You can then stun lock the enemies, hit them with an Inferno Beam, hit them with a Stone Shot, and they die. And then say there's a second wave spawning. Now, you won't have an Inferno Beam. You will only have Bubble Blast and Tearing Whirlwind in terms of quick abilities beside your basic ability. You can use a Tearing Whirlwind, group them up, drop them off into the pit, and boom. You just killed two waves of a room rather easily without actually making too much use of barrels. Say you only needed one, maybe two barrels in order to get the job done. You might still have some barrels left on the stage. You can simply use a Tearing Whirlwind to clear the rest of the room, yada yada yada. During that time, your Inferno Beam will come back up, your Bubble Blast will come back up. It's just the usual efficient use of your abilities, I'd say, which counts here. You don't just want to blow all of your gunpowder right away. Quite literally, you want to leave some explosive TNT barrels around just in case there's another room, or just in case you're going to backtrack to that room from another room. Say you headed to another room, and that room is just really crowded. There's a ton of enemies. There are no barrels in it either. You don't have a Tearing Whirlwind up right now. Just bait the enemies back towards a different barrel, and then pull the barrel inside of your enemies, or the enemies towards the barrel, and proc everything. Just cause a bunch of chain reactions. You get it. This is just a very minor form of strategic play, I'd say, which is gonna matter here today, and that's what I feel like that this run modifier should be played around, and what we are gonna be trying to do today. Just a bunch of strategic, barrel-focused, barrel-centric gameplay, and for boss clear, mini-boss clear, that's gonna be a whole lot less exciting, most likely. We're just gonna try to stack up a bunch of decent items in order to be able to deal with them. As per usual, I do focus a whole lot more on the journey to a boss, as boss fights I don't really stamp as being very exciting, regardless of what kind of build you're playing. Boss fights, generally speaking, are always the same and very boring and bland, and not nearly as exciting as having a bunch of randomized enemies in randomized rooms with randomized rewards and drops and mimics and so on and so forth. Moving on to the potential problems. I'd say one innate issue here is the downside of Conga Drum set. You have to really use your abilities to the maximum. Don't just use an ability to have a bunch of damage. Use it for like 3 different reasons. Use it to have damage, to apply a debuff, to move enemies around, to climb them up, to buy yourself time so other abilities can tick down, or other relics can come off cooldown. Use your abilities to proc the Sano's Headband. Use them wisely to keep the Sano's Headband active when it actually matters, when enemies are hitting you. While enemies are hitting you, or about to hit you, you always want at least, if you can dodge the ability, that is, which is obviously the best alternative here, you always want to be using an ability. So you can't be stun locked, and then can't actually be Conga Drum set it, so to speak, right? Because this thing gets you killed so quickly you would not believe. Stack this up with a Magician's Wand, stack this up with a Silver Spinning Top, stack this up with a freaking... What's the other item that I named? The glove, whatever the hell it's called. Was it the Lastborn's Gauntlet, I believe? And man, you are in for a ride. You will get hit once by a boss and you're dead. You're dead, period. Stack this up against items like... Sorry, against attacks like the Freya Ultimate. Which, yeah, she tries to freeze you. And guess what happens when you get frozen? Not only do you get stun locked naturally, but with the Conga Drum set, you're stun locked even after the attack, which is horrible. You can't even break free from the ice. This is so terrible. So you have to use your abilities. If you can't sufficiently dodge an ability, just use Tearing Whirlwind. Dash around, walk around, try to not be hit too often, and just keep using abilities to mitigate this downside. That's going to be incredibly important to your overall run experience. If you don't do that, if you don't start things over the Sanos, for example, that's my prediction anyway, you're going to be in for a bit of a miserable experience at times, because being stun locked and rendered unable to do anything, and then enemies push you into a pit, for example, or they literally push you into a corner and finish you off from all the way down from 500 to 0 is very frustrating. And I do get that a lot, and I've read a lot of reviews about this game, and generally what people that don't have a lot of hours in this game claim is that being stun locked without iframes existing feels very frustrating. I can't personally relate, but with the Conga Drum set, or with the Lastborn's Gauntlet, or any of the other items that slow you down massively, I can absolutely understand why you would think that. So don't get hit in the first place. That's the only problem that I can really come up with right now. Other than that, we're going to be having plenty of damage, plenty of healing and armor, and then versatility with the Sano's Headband, or utility rather, so we shouldn't really struggle too much here, except with boss clear, which is the next point on my list. Recommended items and Arcana. So what are we going to be doing about that elephant in the room? The boss clear. How do we deal with that? Well, as per usual, we don't have the worst of abilities at our hand here. Tearing Whirlwind and Bubble Blast are entirely useless into bosses. They don't deal nearly enough damage, even with a ton of extra base damage. They can't be used for anything else except what we've already talked about. You can use them for signature charge generation, for example, regardless of your item build. These will always be horrible and always do the worst of jobs regarding those particular aspects. So instead, we want to heavily focus on improving our Stone Shot, which is super good. As mentioned in the beginning, you can easily enhance it as it is a basic Arcana, as it is a projectile, slap a bunch of crit chance and base damage and candies and gloves on it. There are so many items that synergize well with it, and then abilities as well. Like the aforementioned Field Berserk, like the lightning aspect that allow you to deal a lot more damage, like a calming flow which grants you a lot of cooldown reduction. It's not the greatest of buffs, but it's still gonna work regardless, and it's gonna work neatly together with both your enhanced, hopefully, Tearing Whirlwind as well as your Inferno Beam, allowing for you to use those abilities more often to compensate for the lack of damage from not having found a Field Berserk instead. Other than that, I'd say Inferno Beam synergizes very well with the aforementioned projectile destruction, which isn't always an option. Thunder Twins, for example, don't shoot any projectiles that you can abuse. Atlas only shoots one particular projectile that you can abuse, which wouldn't generate a ton of signature charge, destroying it, that is, obviously, as it's only one projectile. But against Azil and against Frey, you can abuse the shit out of projectile destruction. If you're not gonna be fighting either of them, if you're gonna be fighting things like Shu, like Atlas or the Thunder Twins, i.e. anybody else, you should go for a different game plan. Maybe play around the burn status effect for a little bit of extra damage. Maybe play around base damage increases to make the rather flimsy hit of base Inferno Beam, whether it be the signature or the actual base ability, the non-signature ability, just hit a little harder. Like a fiery paintbrush comes to mind. Maybe a double trouble could be very helpful for both your basic and your signature and your overall run experience. I'd say you just need a bunch of extra base damage increases, and if you can't find too many of them, or great ones either, you should go for a little bit of defense instead. So at least you're not going to die during the boss fight, you're going to outlast the boss and eventually beat it. I know it's not the most exciting thing, but you have a grit rope, so you can use it. You can use and abuse it by stacking a bunch of armor. Likewise, right? That is just as good as stacking a bunch of base damage, even though it may take a lot longer and be a lot less exciting visually or run experience wise. In terms of Arcana, beside the aforementioned buffing Arcana, you do have a lot of options for granting you extra high damage numbers, like an exploding fireball, or the aforementioned, or the not aforementioned, but the always mentioned bold claymore. These deal very, very high amounts of damage on a base level, even when unenhanced. When enhanced, of course, they become even better. They have a huge coverage, generally speaking, so they can be used as a poking tool, for boss clear, for proccing a bunch of things like explosive rolls again, for example, for hitting large groups of enemies, stun locking them. Up close they can be used very efficiently, they are very, very fast to use, they can be used for generating signature, yada yada yada. You can just grant yourself a lot of extra options picking up one of these abilities, whether enhanced or not, it doesn't really matter. Also, jumps, in addition, can be useful. I would strongly recommend picking up only enhanced jumps. If you got a Maelstrom or a Heroic Blaze, for example, you should absolutely pick these up when enhanced. These are super expensive, and then you have to spend another 100 gold to enhance them. That's, generally speaking, not going to be super worth it for what the ability does. So you do just want to have 1 or 2 jumps, maybe, in order to grant you a bunch of iframes while jumping, making you invulnerable, so you can just simply jump through attacks. You can ignore the attacks, you can bypass certain other restrictions, not to mention Sano's Headband is still there for you, so while starting the jump and not actually being airborne, you will also get the iframes, which is neat. However, after the jump, usually jumps leave you vulnerable and unable to do anything. Sano's won't help you out with that. So jumps are a little bit risky. You can, however, still utilize them. They are, after all, some of the best abilities in the game. They, generally speaking, deal a high amount of damage, granting you a very high amount of defense, literally making you invulnerable. Other than that, there's the usual candidates like a Permafrost Bulwark, super strong, and a Bouncing Surge and similar abilities. So you just want a lot of extra damage, as with most builds in Wizard of Legend, let's be frank. But in addition, you already got a bunch of treats with the Grit Robe, with the Sanos plus Conga drum set combo, with the Tearing Whirlwind allowing for very easy room clear as long as that room has a bunch of pits. And then the Inferno Beam being incredibly strong into particular bosses. I'd say you shouldn't struggle too much regardless of how you approach today's build. So let's get right into today's run, shall we? Let's grab our sweet, sweet money. I don't feel like dodging anybody. And then let's go. Okay, Shu, Freya, and Thunder Twins. I really love fighting fire with this. Shu, could be a bit of an issue, because I don't have multi-hit abilities. Oh yeah. Now the barrels are gonna be very, very powerful early on, because I can literally just kill everything in one hit. I'm not sure the barrels lower the amount of obstacles generated. It doesn't seem like it. But if they did, they would obviously lower our overall gold gain, which is a little regretful. All coal costs for Arcana are discounted. Sure, why not? I do need a lot of abilities after all. whether it be my enhancements for the base abilities or simply better abilities. Oh, hi. Didn't even see you there. Barrel. I keep missing. That's unfortunate. I'm just not used to the explosion barrel, the TNT barrel range yet. But I will definitely get accustomed to that over the course of this run. They do have a much smaller range than I would personally expect. And I keep pressing Inferno Beam instead of my Whirling Tornado. I'm just used to having Whirling Tornado as my signature. I will also get used to that over the course of this run. So I got two things that I personally wish to learn here, and then forget about afterwards. Plenty of obstacles in here. Don't use up too many barrels there, as I could not predict whether or not there'd be another wave of enemies. Just drop them off. One by one. It's quite a free room for a for a former Whirling Tornado enjoyer. I really like that ability a lot. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just being fast and being furious and moving stuff around. Kind of feels good. I used to hate the ability. I do remember that. I do vividly recall watching a lot of VODs early in my Wizard of Legend career, so to speak. I just didn't really feel like playing the game myself. I watched it a lot. I watched people playing it. And I do remember this duo they always recorded together, or they used to, I suppose. And they really loved using Tearing Whirlwind, and I never understood why. I really hated it. And then I tried it out, I gave it a go firmly over the course of many different runs, and I kind of fell in love with it. It is quite underwhelming though, let me tell you. Don't expect anything strong whatsoever. Okay, we've found Last Bonds and Silver Spinning Top. Two relics that I talked a ton about earlier. Now, Stanza could be quite helpful. A lot of extra fire damage is neat. Bewitching is also very good, but I hate lowering my overall movement speed and getting rid of knockback. For most builds, that just really sucks. That means Tearing Whirlwind ain't gonna do anything, which I just can't have. I'm sorry, that can't happen. And it's never worth the 20% extra damage. I will always pick that up late game when I don't need to move around a lot, as lowering my movement speed is just so fucking obnoxious. Let's try projectiles. Okay. There are certain projectiles, like Whirlwind specifically, that require multiple hits in order to be destroyed. You can't just expect one bubble to pop the whole thing, you will need multiple. And often, that's just not a possibility. Often that will just not happen naturally. You'll have to force it with an Inferno Beam, which does hit multiple times, as it is a beam after all. It has multiple ticks worth of damage, as long as something is standing in the beam. Okay, Bubble Blast, sure. Heroic Blaze, also an ability that I mentioned earlier. Ward of Winds is not gonna be super helpful though. Okay, anything else? I don't think so, honestly. Let's just move on. Whoops. Controller aim. Yikes. I used to play this game on a mouse and keyboard, but I really fell in love with just being able to to lie back and play it on a controller. I'm not a controller person whatsoever, don't get me wrong. I really love playing on a mouse and keyboard. It's my preferred method of playing games. And in my book, that's the only method, the only valid method of playing a game to the best of your personal ability. I don't think controllers can even remotely closely hold up with a mouse and keyboard. However, I can't deny that it is very chill. It's a very, very neat experience to just lean back, have a good time with my controller, and Wizard of Legend. And I have recently, over the course of the last few years, started picking up roguelikes specifically, more and more frequently, and playing them on a controller instead of mouse and keyboard. But I always play them first on mouse and keyboard, regardless of the game. I only then decide with the informed decision whether or not I'd like to switch to a controller instead. If there's simply no advantage, or if the controller controls would feel very clunky to use and would take a long ass time to get used to, I don't generally tend to do it. It's a personal thing though. My girlfriend, for example, really loves playing on a controller. She hates playing on mouse and keyboard. Or wouldn't it be fun if I could kill the NPC? I've never even thought about that, but thinking about games like Spelunky or Noita, it would be quite troublesome if you were able to kill these NPCs with the explosive bells. So what do we do here? I feel like we have a bunch of options. Jewelry box can be incredibly overpowered with this build. I definitely want Magician's Top Hat, which can be combined with the Magician's Wand to the Magician's Outfit. That's a very, very, very good item. I love it, and especially when combined, it's incredibly powerful. Other than that, the box is very, very good. I'm not sure I will need that, though. Like, undeniably, it's overpowered as hell. I just haven't really made the decision. I don't really have the information necessary in order to make that decision yet. I will wait on my red shop and potentially on the pink shop too. Okay, red shop is nothing. It's just Dr. Song, which is okay. I can definitely see myself trading a white herring moment. I love the soundtrack. It's just so good. So perfect, man. They call me the taxi. Oh my god, the bird just moved the barrel. What? That's crazy. I've never seen that. I didn't even know they had a hitbox. Oh, I love making rooms bug the hell out. Rooms sometimes open when they don't register any enemies being left alive. I don't know when it happens, but I have recently experienced that a ton. Hell, I have even forced it willingly, but I don't know how. It's fascinating if you think about it. Now, I can't effectively discard the Tearing Whirlwind here. I don't want to trade a Dr. Songs either. Let's full clear the stage. There's not a whole lot missing. Someone's left alive? No? Alright, cool. They call me Wizard of Explosive Barrels. Okay, what do we do here? Yo, I don't remember that Harry Potter character. Jewelry box. We could also run Igniting Sprite, but I don't really feel like Sprite's ruining anything. Paralytic has an anti-synergy with Tearing Whirlwind, as this can proc in the middle of Tearing Whirlwind, rooting enemies in place, so I don't generally pick this up. It would be a decent option here today, so I could root enemies and then finish them off with an Inferno Beam to the face or a bunch of barrel explosions, but I, regardless, don't really feel like picking it up here. Oh, he's using an ability. You got a Limo Sleeve, essentially. A much more powerful Limo Sleeve. You simply have to use an ability. You don't even have to hit a Limos properly. That is so good. Sano is just crazy good. And now I can play incredibly aggressively due to the Jewelry Box plus the Grit Rope combination, which is just such a strong synergy. I've seen it thousands of times at this point, and it's one of the most busted things you can do in this game. It's super brain dead. You could probably run these two in conjunction as your starter Robe and starter Relic, and you would have a perfect run every single time, regardless of how talented you are in this game. There's just naturally a lot of gem gain in this game. And Grit Rope, reducing the damage you take as well as increasing the healing you receive, is gonna be very helpful with your overall survivability. Stay close for extra damage. That's okay, he doesn't really hit early. Not very hard, anyway. Just quickly chugging the Inferno Beam for the burn, because I'm very close to my signature. Stay close because he's gonna dash away, and then cover the distance with the Inferno Beam, finish him off. It's very simple. Shearing Chain. Okay, that's gonna be okay at best, not super useful whatsoever. I don't really intend to use that a ton, but it can be used very effectively with the Sano Headband into Sura, as it has a very long duration and deals a decent chunk of damage. I do really like it as a signature, just as a regular ability with enhanced or unenhanced. I'm not a huge fan. Just bait everybody. Alright, that way we can also take care of potential mimics, knocking them back fairly far away using the Inferno Beam signature. Pop the barrel in advance. Wait for our cooldowns and finish everybody off. Get into a corner. We don't really want them to be able to generate a shield here. We want to permanently attack them so they won't be able to use their AoE attacks. Even though, I'm gonna be honest, I haven't seen the AoE Knight attack for days, for ages, for months at this point. I don't know why it's so goddamn rare. I don't know when they even do it. I don't understand the attack. In certain builds, I try to force the attack, but even then I don't get to see it. Like, it's crazy. I don't get it though. It's probably me doing something wrong. Just play around my Limo Sleeve. Hehehe. So good. Oh, I do need more abilities. Give me that upgrade. Airborne Slam is pretty darn good. I don't really... I'm not really feeling it at this point. I definitely won't be needing that. A Robe upgrade, hell yeah! That's a ton of extra healing, ton of extra armor. Stacks up even better. Super, super good. And I don't even feel cheesy or bad for getting it. It's not unfair by any means. Unlike a Fury on our Robe upgrade, which are incredibly devastating to your overall DPS dealt. Devastating, of course, in the best imaginable sense. You just destroy everything. Aww. I thought I would leave him stun lock, but I didn't. Oh well. Get rid of the projectiles. Keep using abilities. Stone Chain also has a decently long duration with the enhancement, so we should be able to abuse Sano's even more so, which is fantastic. You know how much I love myself some Sano abuse. No. Through the bubbles you go, my friend. It's kind of a neat combination. I could pop down some bubbles and then pull enemies into them. Obviously, it's not a very useful combination, but it feels good, regardless. Okay, lays drum, another drummy, another drummy drum. I would love some of these, honestly, but they don't really do much for me. Unlike the Surefire Rocket, which is super duper good, super useful as well. I don't know what's going on with me today. I feel a little sloppy. You've probably noticed, but then again, I didn't catch too much sleep yesterday, so that's probably the reason why. Just woke up around 3 AM, not really being able to continue on sleeping. I somehow hurt myself at night while sleeping. Like really, really bad, to the point where I felt like my arm was broken or something. Not a great feeling, let me tell you. I could barely get up. I had to sit up straight in bed for about half an hour before going back to bed. Just couldn't deal with the pain, it was huge. Of course it is the last room. Damn, Surefire value. Sweet. Did I bounce the Magician's Hat? I don't think I did. I gotta do it. It's my signature move after all, man. Can't let that go to waste. Abuse the barrels. Abuse cancelling abilities, just chugging them in for a quick signature charge generation, as well as a tiny bit of extra damage dealt. And then cancel the ability immediately, working towards that full signature charge bar. Now with Surefire, that's gotta be a ton easier, to be honest, but I still love doing this a lot. Also, great reason for running these particular abilities. Maybe with the exception of Tearing Whirlwind, you could arguably cut it. It's a bit of a combo build. I like that. A lot. I love that, in fact. It adds a lot of complexity, a lot of artificial depth. I do like that. It's great. Honestly, abilities should be cancelable as a general principle, which would allow for a ton of extra combos. You can make a combo build from any and everything, even like a Sonic Breaker, for example, which I believe is cancelable, but usually in order to cancel an ability you need to dash out of it, right? Which is fine for many abilities, but for other abilities that just doesn't really work. Say I wanted to cancel an airborne slam mid-air. Just cancel a jump. There's no concept for that. I think it would feel incredibly rewarding. You're actually feeling like Superman at that point, like an actual wizard. It's cool. I would love that so much. Tearing Whirlwind, for example, can't be cancelled right away. Like, I can only cancel it after a second or two, which really sucks. I don't get it. What's the reason? I could use this quickly as an Aqua Vortex to pull in enemies, cancel it immediately, and follow that up with an Inferno Beam, which I can cancel immediately, and then follow that up with a bunch of Stone Shots, for example. I cannot do that as is today. I just do not like that. I think there's so much potential in the combat system of this game. It's already so well polished, but it could be so much more than it already is. You can make all abilities be as fluid as your Inferno Beam, for example, which is just such a good ability. So versatile, so fun, so unique. Hello, Lone Summoner. Man, I love abusing the stun lock, just so I can watch my abilities go off cooldown again. And do it all again. Oh, fire! That's a jackpot! Oh no, never mind. It's a dragon circuit in here, kind of disguising a fire element. It's sort of orangey though, to be fair. It's not like a pure yellow. You can't really immediately distinct it from the rest here. The difference isn't very notable, I'd say. Man, I'm such a sloth today. I don't know why. I mean, I do know why. I don't know why I keep saying that. I do clearly know why. It's because I just didn't catch much sleep. No, don't freeze me, senpai! Wrong ability. Keep looking for that Tearing Whirlwind. Very weird room there. Some sort of Illuminati room. With the eye standing in a triangle as well. Nothing in between. It's just kind of just kind of weird, to be honest. I don't get it at all. Watercolor palette could be super cool. Having a bunch of extra corner reduction means a lot of extra damage. Secret wildcard and it's on discount. Yeah, that's very good with the Surefire Rocket. I'll gladly pick that up. And then maybe the watercolor palette or the Tesla Call, as I can't currently shock, so Tesla Call is a decent extra damage up. I'll pick it up. I love these calls. I love my status effects. They're just super fun to use. I'm a big fan of status effects. Oh my god, we actually end up finding a bladed buckler? That is crazy good. That's gonna be insane for this fight. Just in time, my friend. Holy shit, that's a lot of signature charge generation. No, I missed it! I missed it like a douche! I do clearly keep wasting it, but that's fine. My main has a very low cooldown. I intended to use it against the ultimate, to just get a bunch of signature charge generation, then use the signature, and just destroy her entire ultimate. Alternatively, I could have just quickly chucked it in like that, and then cancel it to dodge the ultimate. That's what I tried to do anyway, and I failed miserably due to me just being at a very bad angle and trying to use it diagonally, but failing at that. Failing at the input section, failing at the controls here, because I'm playing on a controller, and I don't like using joysticks, so... I am actually using the control pad. Is it the D-pad, I believe you call it? I don't know, can you tell I'm really not a controller person? Let's just breeze through this stage. Tesla's not going to be super useful here, but against the regular enemies it's still going to work out. Thanks, mate. Oh, come on! I mispositioned him. Loads of beginner mistakes here today. Fine by me, honestly. It just makes the run all that more entertaining to me personally. The more mistakes I make, the more I have to actually pay attention and play better in order to not lose the run. Sometimes I deliberately make mistakes just so I have a much more exciting run at hand. No, not again! I missed someone. Okay, supply crate. Sure, why not? Okay, that's a lot of extra damage and movement speed. I do like those. I just need money. Whoops. Back into the corner you go. Okay, I just keep making misplays around the tearing Whirlwind for the most part here. Shoot through the barrels, kill everybody multiple times. Oh, I hit a mimic by accident. I just intended to style on my enemies, but that works. Come on, I just want to use the vortex. Hello. Fine by me. I don't care about taking damage. Clearly I don't. Alrighty. Let's grab this. Nothing else. More gem game, but it's a little late for that. We'll pick it up, by the way. It might still come in handy here. indeed, that's a ton of gems. Friendship Bracelet is a little bit of extra damage and a little bit of extra movement speed. I don't think I really need that. I'll just grab the healing part for now. Why not, right? I probably won't need it later anyway. There's just so much hitting with the healing orbs and the Great Robe together. It's just so freaking good. And then there's a ton of gem gain right before Sora as well, so I should be full health at that point. Easily. No doubt in my mind. Right, the barrels were not enough. Clearly, I don't deal a ton of damage, so it's kind of hard figuring out the best order here. It's probably something like this. Alright, Inferno Beam may be a little slow. Maybe I just need to get lucky with a crit chance. I could also simply pick up more items for the, what's it called, Merchant's Guard damage. Alright, there we go. Bolt's Claymore! Hello, friendo! How's it going? I'll keep the Aqua Vortex because of the slow. I hear somebody running. Hey. Play around your environment, and you should be good to go. Assassination. It was an attempt. An attempt was made. So much healing. Crazy good. Bull Claymore is just so versatile. Hello, Mimic. No, I do not wish to proc the trap. Fuck you. Now I can proc the trap. Missed that bolt. I meant to hit everybody there. Definitely could have taken damage there, but, well, that didn't end up happening, so who gives a crap anyway? Mistakes? Nah, we don't make none of that. Oh, come on. Come on. I just had a stroke again. Just keep having strokes, man. Talking is so hard today. I meant to say we make none of those, but then my brain just kind of stopped working again. It's kind of hilarious though. Get that free projectile destruction. It generates so much signature. It's kind of crazy. Alright, Tears of Might, that's a lot of gold, which I can actually keep in my inventory. That's neat. Because somehow I still got a spot because of all these stacking items. Freeze. Freeze, foe. Alright, goodbye, boys. Oh, wrong direction. Group them up and then kill. Again, we really don't care about taking damage. As long as we're not stun locked, we'll be good to go. I keep missing the Claymore, which is kind of embarrassing, considering how often I preach about using a Bolt Claymore in addition to your build. But oh well, I don't get to see it a ton either. I'm just like you. Ebon Wolf's Cloak. It's a lot of damage. I'm not sure about that. I kinda do. I kinda really do. I'll definitely pick out the pen for now, let me tell you that much. I guess I'll keep the jade gem... The Jade's gem locator for now. For a lot of extra free healing. My monkey brain can't make decisions today. Oh, everyone's dead already. Oh well. Just freeze. And then combo. I missed the Claymore again. I tried hitting both of them, but I just hit the knight. Oh boy. Okay. So what now? Analytical monocle would be okay, so I feel like the pen might net a little bit of value. Like, not a ton by any means, but maybe a few signatures. But then again, I can't exactly farm this into Thunder Twins whatsoever. I'll have to wait till Sora. So this was quite a stupid purchase. Admittedly so. Magician's Top Hat just doesn't do anything for us either. So we may want to grab... We may want to grab Admiral's Cloak, but then we won't have Stone Shot damage. I'll just pick it up for now. Could come in handy, potentially. And then Ancient Fountain Pen is like not going to do a ton, but at least it's, in theory, a damage up. I don't think we're going to be able to use it whatsoever here before the Sora fight. If we just deal too much damage, we kill everything right away. This is not a boss that shoots projectiles, so we can't just stay here and farm Ancient Fountain Pen stacks for a while. It's just kind of a bummer. Everything's just a little bit dreadful today. But oh well, what can you do? Still having a good time regardless. Oh damn. I can't believe I got hit by the first hit there. Cast a Claymore in advance. Whoopsie daisy do. Alright, I can't be cancelled. Fuck you guys. Voltaic Needle. I'm in show, why not? I got an Wolves. Why not? There's no point using Aqua Vortex going forward. It has quite a low range anyway. And I'm full health even before entering. Come on, stop dashing around, you guys. I just want to hit both of you. How did the archer die? I barely even hit him. Come on. Why are you so soft? Tons of healing. Thank you very much. Okay, so what can we drop now? Tears of Martyrs has gotta go. Anything else? 4% from the fountain pen already. That's kind of impressive, honestly, considering how little time we actually got. How few opportunities. But we got the Ranger mini-boss, which is fantastic for this. Right, very neat. Dark Katana would be super helpful. Berserkers could be pretty good. It's the only thing that remotely does anything out of all these items. I should probably fetch the key. And we get nothing. Oh well. More gem gain? Nah. I don't even know, man. It's just kind of depressing. But the item build is okay, right? It's nothing wild, it's just all healing. It's all healing and signature charge gain. Which I'm more than fine by. Don't get me wrong, I love my sweet, sweet signature charge gain. We can farm the fountain pen. At least a little bit. I don't think Sura is nearly durable enough. No, I missed it. I was about to use it. Controller aim. Strong today. Just keep using ability so I can't be frozen and shit. I don't like that. I don't like that, man. I don't like being cancelled. I'm being stun locked. Oh, dude. Oh my god. That was such a clutch. Holy shit. Okay, that was a rough one. That was quite a rough patch of dirt. Holy shit. My heart is beating to my chest. That was so unnecessarily close just because I decided to fuck up there. Oh boy. Regardless, it was a fun time. I definitely had a good time today. I am probably gonna go back to back here. I probably need a little bit of rest. My brain just seems to not function properly today. Regardless, I hope you had a good time. I hope you maybe learn something about my particular build approach to this and about Sano's Headband being insanely busted. It's a Kasim's Area Cloak plus it's a leaf, right? This thing is crazy overpowered under the right circumstances, and you pretty much provide the circumstances right away with your own modifier. Sort of. Anyway, it's super, super good. These Arcana, generally speaking, work so freaking well with it. The bongos, not so much. I mean, they're okay, right? You kind of negate their effect, like, a lot. You could actually see their effect in full bloom there at the very end, with me being entirely unable to do anything in that given situation, which is, of course, a huge loss of control, and pretty much results in instantaneous death. I'm glad that we could drag it out till the very end there. Literally, the very end. He would have died, like with one or maybe two more hits, even off the tearing Whirlwind, which is crazy to think about, right? That was so freaking close. Regardless, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and as per usual, you know how it is, you know how it goes. I wish you all a good morning, a good day, or a good night, wherever you are. And until next time, bye-bye.